Is Prime Minister Keir Starmer listening to the British people? In this video, MP Steve Barclay grilled Prime Minister Keir Starmer over his controversial decision on borrowing and the economy. Plus, we'll explore the key leadership principle of listening, so you can decide for yourself whether what the people have to say is falling on deaf ears or not. Before we get into the details, if you love diving into political issues and enjoy hearing a principled take on them, then hit the like button, share this video, and subscribe to join the conversation. It will help our channel reach a wider audience.
Prime Minister, you've just been at pains to point out to Mr Byrne how much you're spending on different things. In May, the government had the second highest borrowing since records began, with only peak COVID in May 2020 being higher.
Sorry, I missed the middle word there, Steve. I'm so sorry.
In May, your government borrowed the second highest amount since records began, £17.7 billion you borrowed just in the month of May, and only peak COVID in May 2020 was higher. Do you expect borrowing this year to be higher or in line with forecast at the budget?
Oh, in line with forecasts, and there have been monthly fluctuations, usually for global reasons, as you'll have seen in a number of other countries. But we have also obviously got our overarching fiscal rules in place, which are ironclad, one of them relating to borrowing as a proportion of debt.
So tomorrow we will get both the June figure but also the figure for your first year in government of how much you've borrowed. You're expecting that to be in line with what was set out in the budget?
Well, I'll see what the figures are tomorrow. There have been, I think every month this year there have been fluctuations, broadly driven, and I think generally accepted as driven by events that are happening globally, almost capable of being tracked to them day by day. But I want to be in line with the forecasts. We've got the fiscal rules in place to ensure that we are in line with the forecasts.
Well, the spending decision you just been talking about weren't global factors, they're national decisions. At the spring statement, the OBR found that there was a £14 billion deterioration in the fiscal forecast, the fiscal outlook from between the budget and the spring statement. Industry analysts are predicting a similar amount of deterioration ahead of the budget. Again, is that something that you would reject?
Well, my experience so far has been of different predictions almost on a weekly basis as we get into the final stages of the budget, which is why I think it's important to see them over a slightly longer term and see what precisely those forecasts are when we get to the autumn. And I don't say that frivolously. I was very concerned only a few weeks ago when the conflict in the Middle East looked like it was going to escalate rather than de-escalate. I was very concerned about the impact that would have on oil prices and on our economy as a result. And therefore, I do think it's important for us to see this over a slightly longer term.
We're
tracking it, as you'd
people
imagine,
would accept
very, very
slight
closely.
variations. What I'm trying to tease out is whether there's a trend, and you're rejecting, for example, pretty widely accepted industry analysts that there's an expected further deterioration. For example, ING had predicted a further 14 billion. You're saying that's quite wide of the mark.
Well, let's see what the OBR's forecasts are in the autumn.
Right.
As I say, my experience is that those forecasts change on a pretty regular basis, often according to external factors, and trying to guess now what the forecast might be in the autumn is fraught with all sorts of difficulties.
Fine. In terms of consistency then, given other things change, is it reasonable to say, with regard to the fiscal headroom that you set out, that as a point of principle, you feel that there should be a reasonable amount of fiscal headroom?
Yes.
And you took measures to restore the headroom in the spring statement. Was that because the fiscal headroom you put in place at the budget was too insufficient?
No, I don't think so. I'd generally point out that the fiscal headroom we put in the budget was considerably more than the last government put in their last budget by some measure. But then there was a lot of fluctuation in the early part of this year. particularly with conflicts in different parts of the world, but also with the immediate after effects of the tariff decisions that were being taken, for example, in America, had an impact. And it was right, in my view and the Chancellor's view, that we retained the fiscal headroom.
Okay, so even though the headroom at the budget was insufficient and you, in my view, rightly took measures at the spring statement to restore it, the OECD are wrong when they said last month, again, pointing to how thin the fiscal headroom is. Again, you feel both industry analysis is incorrect, and you see warnings from the likes of the OECD as incorrect in terms of suggesting it is way too thin.
No, I'm not saying they're incorrect. I'm just saying I think it's important for us to look at it in the round and over the slightly longer period. I do think it's important to have that headroom, which is why we put it in the budget last autumn, and why in the spring statement we took the duty to put that headroom back in, which is what we did.
The OBR found that of 21 forecasts that they have done since 2010, all but one of those was overly optimistic. Are you confident that the OBR forecast and that the budget will not be over-optimistic this time?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, that's a matter for the OBR. They make the forecast. They're there for a purpose. And we obviously take what forecast they put in place and act accordingly.
Okay, what I'm interested in is decisions you have taken, for example, on welfare, where the IFS, I think, put the figure to over 3 billion, on winter fuel, where your own government figures put the cost as an additional 1 billion. There will be known pressures from decisions you have taken, which will be coming in the forthcoming budget. And what I'm interested in is the trend of a fiscal headroom which was insufficient, and you've already had to take measures to restore it. Warnings of that and warnings from industry. And again, without getting into writing a budget ahead of October, I'm interested in the trends and whether you're concerned.
No, I am, Stephen. You've been in this position preparing for budgets, and you will know the experience, which is that there are forecasts that, as you lead into a budget, begin in the end come on a weekly basis and fluctuate week to week, literally, and therefore my experience of the budget and the spring statement is to focus intensely on the forecasts when we get them and prepare for them now according to our fiscal rules, which is what we're doing.
Well, you would accept that the size of gap we're talking about is more than mere fluctuations.
Well, look, back in the autumn, the OBR predicted one thing. By the spring, it predicted something else. By autumn, they will give their prediction going forward from there, and we have to work from that forecast.
But that's been consistent in a deteriorating line. That's the concern. It's not been fluctuating and getting better for some of the time. It's been consistently deteriorating.
Well, different forecasts forecast different things. Nobody forecast that we'd have the highest growth in the G7 for the first quarter of this year, but we did. And I'm pleased about that. And I think the measures we're taking can create the conditions in which we can improve on that in the autumn and the budgets thereafter.
Okay, so optimism, Prime Minister, for the future as well.
One of the greatest gifts a leader can possess is the ability to truly listen. Hear the cries of your people, their anger, their pain, their fears, and their lived experiences. Listening to those voices can shape your policies, crafting decisions that foster safety, security, and hope for their future, their children's future, and the nation as a whole. Pay attention to experts like the Office of Budget Responsibility. Their insights, even when tough to hear, can shift your perspective and guide you towards smarter, more effective policies. But if you, as a leader, lock yourself into decisions without heeding critical voices, you risk creating policies that harm the very people you serve and ultimately yourself. It's not just that you listen, but who you choose to listen to. Plans often fail due to a lack of wise counsel, but with the right advisors, you can uncover blind spots you didn't know existed and pave the way for success. True leadership demands open ears and an open heart. So, are leaders truly listening to the people? Or are their voices being drowned out? Drop a comment below and let's discuss this. If you have benefited in any way from this video, please subscribe, like, share, and be sure to leave us a comment.